What is going on, guys? Welcome to part 3 of the Build an Instagram app series. In the last part, we set up Firebase over here. We brought in dependencies and we started stubbing out our login view controller. In this video, we're going to basically build out our UI, also build out the registration UI, and depending on how we do on time, we'll also hook it up to the actual Firebase services. So that said, make sure you got Xcode ready, hit that like button as always, and let's jump right in. So we're exactly where we left off in the last video. And what we're gonna now do is we're gonna start designing this UI for the login screen. So we already added all the subviews here. And the very first thing we wanna start by doing is giving all of these subviews frames. So the very top thing up here is going to be the header view. So we're gonna say header view.frame. This is going to be a CG rect, and this is going to be 0. Y we'll do in a second. Width is going to be view.frame.size.width, and height, let's just say 200. So what we should be able to do is view.frame, and we should be able to reference the safe area insets off of the view. And we want to make sure we take this into account for the top, so we're not overlapping with things like the notch and whatnot. But even before we go ahead and do that, something you might notice is if we ever want to reference the width, we have to do this view.frame.size.width nonsense, and it's going to become pretty verbose pretty fast. And I don't know about you guys, but I get lazy with this stuff. So we're going to add a couple extensions, and our extensions are going to simplify our life quite a bit. So we're going to create a new file. It'll be a Swift file, and we're going to go ahead and call this extensions.swift. And basically in here, we're going to write some shorthand extensions that we can use throughout our project. So we're going to extend UI view, and let's say we want to get the width of any UI view's frame. We're going to create a public var called width, which will be a CG float. And we're simply going to return frame.size.width. And now what we can do over here, instead of doing this, we can just say .width. Hopefully, there we go. Yep, .width, and it compiles successfully. So by the way I'm flipping through these files is on your, if you have a trackpad, you can swipe left and right, and Xcode will take you between your previous and next file that you were editing. We're going to copy and paste this and add some functionality for other things like height. And let's do a couple more. And now we're going to do top, which is going to be frame.origin.y. We're going to do bottom, which is going to be frame.size.height. So we're going to actually say this is the bottom of this is going to be frame.origin.y plus the height. And we're going to say left is going to be frame.origin.x. And let me copy and replace this. And the right is going to be the origin x plus frame.width. So we're using the shorthand, so let's use the explicit one. So now whenever we want to lay out views, we don't have to write all of the redundant view.frame.size or origin. We can use these shorthanded properties. And this will come in pretty handy as we start laying out more of our views with code, so we can simplify the amount of code we have to write. So let's actually configure these views. We stubbed them out very, very simply here. So we're gonna add some configuration to each of these views. So this approach of creating a subview like this is called an anonymous closure, in case you guys wanna read into it a little bit more. So we're gonna say let field is a UI text field. We're gonna return it here, and here we can do a bunch of customization to it. So we're gonna say the field.placeholder is going to be username or email. We're gonna say field dot return key type is going to be next. Let's see, what else do we want? We're gonna say field.left view mode is always. Field.left view is going to be a UI view, and we're gonna give this a frame. And the left view, for those of you who are not aware, is a bit of buffer on the left side of the text field, so your text is not flush with the actual frame. And what I do is I just give this a width of, let's say, a 10 and a height of 0, slightly irrelevant what the height is. And we're gonna say field.auto capitalization type is going to be none. Field.auto correct type is going to be no. What else? Field, what other properties do we care about? Let's also make this have a slight corner radius. So layer masks to bounds is true. Field.layer.corner radius, we're going to go with 8.0. And a good practice is to put these magic numbers, quote unquote, into constants. So I'm going to create a struct up here called constants, and we're going to say corner radius is a CG float of 8.0. And now here we can say the corner radius is this dot corner radius. That way we can use this over and over. And if we ever want to change it, we simply change the value here. And I believe what we can do is we can probably copy the majority of this code, if not all of it, and paste it down here for the other field, except this is going to be password. And I don't really know if we want these 3 dots. We'll see how it looks, but let's do the rest of this. So the login button is going to be a button, and we're going to return set button. We're going to say button set title. This is going to be login for normal. We're going to say button dot layer dot masks to bounds is true. Button corner radius, again, is going to be the constants corner radius. We're also going to give this guy a background color, and I'm going to just stick with system blue for now. We'll see how it looks. And come to think of it, we should give the field a background color as well. And this is going to be background color. We're going to do secondary system background, like that. That way in dark mode, it'll look a little nicer as well. So let's do that for the field here as well. And let's see, button, we set a title. We should set a title color. It's going to be white for normal. We're going to want to set a action for this button, but we'll do that in view did load. And let's see, terms and privacy, let's ignore that for a second. For this button, we're going to want to make it look slightly different. So I'm just going to type it out. The other thing I'll say is, as you guys are learning more and more Swift in general, it's good to type out your code instead of copy and pasting. It really helps you develop a muscle memory. And as you do it more and more, you start typing faster and faster, which is also helpful. So we're going to set a title for this. Label here is going to be the label color for dark mode or light mode. It adapts. This is going to be new user create an account for normal. We're not going to have a background color on this. I think that's probably good to go. Let's just set we already set a label color or title color, so that's good. And the header view is going to be a header. And we're going to say header clips to bounds is true, so nothing overflows. And we'll return that header. And let's see. So let's add these subviews. Let me give this a background of just red for now so we can see it. And let's see how we want to lay things out. So the header view is going to be 0 from the left. The safe area insets for the top for that view, the view's width. And we want this to be the height of the view divided by, let's say, 3.0. And let's see what this looks like. You can control I to align everything. Hit the run button and let's see what we get. Looks like we have an error button. Let's spell that correctly and hit Command R once more. And we see that we've got our header up here. We are taking into account the status bar and the safe area basically up here. So that's our header. And we're going to want the login stuff here. And up here, we're going to want an Instagram logo. So right now it's red and it's kind of ugly. So what I'm going to do is we're going to open up a browser and we're going to head to google.com. And we're going to search for an image. So we're going to search for the Instagram gradient. And let's select images. And let's find an Instagram gradient picture here that doesn't have a watermark. So it looks like this one is good to go. So we're going to just drag this to our desktop. And let's rename this to be gradient. Let's come back to Xcode. And under views, let's open up XC assets, new image set, gradient. And let's just simply drag in that gradient. So I'm not going to edit out these parts of the video where I go and grab images. I think it's helpful / important to have you guys see all of this. But of course, educational purposes, we're grabbing these these images from online. But basically what we're going to want to do, instead of the header being red as the background, we are going to want to add a image view as the background of this header. So we're going to say background image view is going to be a UI image view with an image, and the image is going to be an image named gradient. And we are going to say header, add subview, background image view. And after we've laid out the frames here, we can say configure header view. Let's create that function here. And basically by default, we should only have one subview. So we're going to say guard header view dot subviews dot count as 1. So basically, if there's nothing else added at the moment to the header view subviews except the background, we're going to continue. We're going to want to add Instagram logo. But before this, we're going to first say guard let background view is going to be header view dot subviews dot first as UI view. And then we want to assign this guy's frame to be the entirety of the header view. And we want to make this a var actually so we can edit things about it. And this should be bounds. Whoops. Let's get rid of that. So that should be bounds. And let's see, what do we have a warning about? We actually don't need this because it's already a UI view. Hit Command B. Make sure it compiles. Hit Command R. We should see that we have our gradient up here now. Awesome, looking good. So one thing that's kind of strange is we have this white up here, so I don't really like that. It should be flush. So what we're going to say here, the Y is going to be 0.0. And whenever we put the Instagram image view in there, which we'll do in a second, we're going to have that respect these safe areas. And it's saying this can be a let. So let me also make that a let. So now we take up the entirety of the top here. That white was looking a little strange. So let's also find a Instagram logo here. So we're going to say Instagram text, no background. And if we can't find one without a background, we're going to want to Photoshop it. Awesome. This is what we want. This is perfect. So let's grab that and put that there. It's a PNG. Let's just call it logo. And let me get rid of this Google file that we brought in already. It's already copied. Not sure if you guys can see what I'm dragging down here. It's kind of small, but grab that logo, go to your XC assets, and let's call this text and drag it on in. And now let's go back to that login view controller. And we want to basically add the Instagram logo. So this is going to be an image view. It's going to be an image view with an image, and the image is going to be named text, and we're going to say header view, add subview, image view. We're going to say image view, image view dot content mode is going to be scale aspect fit. And now we want to give this guy a frame. So we're going to say the frame of this is going to be a CG rect with an X, Y width and height. Let's start with 0. And let's start with view.safeAreaInsets.top. Width we'll say is header view.width. And the height we'll say is header view.height subtracting the safeAreaInsets.top. That way it won't actually overflow. So let's hit Command R and see what this looks like. I think it'll be a little large. We might need to reduce it. So yeah, like I suspected, slightly big, kind of too large. So we're gonna say the width is gonna be the width over 2. The height we can leave the same. We are gonna want to say the X is gonna be header view width over 4, so it's centered. Hit Command R and let's see what that looks like. All right, much better, much nicer. So there is our header view. I think this gradient that we have is the older one that Instagram used to use, but nevertheless, I think it's okay for now. So let's start laying out the fields, the username and password field. So we're actually going to be lazy and copy and paste this. So the next one is going to be the username password and password. X is going to be, let's say 25. Width is going to be the width minus 50, so it's centered. Y is going to be header view dot bottom plus 10. And the height is going to be 52. And we'll eventually move this to constants. And let me replace this. And the X or the Y here is going to be the username field, bottom plus 10, which I think should be sufficient. And right below this, we also want the login button. So now that we're here, we might as well do that as well. So login button will be the password, bottom, view width 30, 52. That's probably also good. And actually below that, we also want the create an account. So let me add that now that we're here anyways. And this is going to be from the bottom of the login button. And hit Command R, let's see what those look like. We might want to add a border to our fields. So cool, we've got our fields showing up. We've got the button. We've got the new user create an account. And we can add the privacy and terms down here. So looking pretty good. If we tap on the field, we should be able to simply type. And if we Command Shift A, we should see that these fields look pretty awesome in dark mode as well as light mode. So awesome stuff there. What else do we want to do? We want to also assign the delegate for the text field so we can get when the user taps the enter button. So we're going to do that for both of the fields, and it's going to give us an error here because we have not conformed to that delegate yet. So come down here and let's write out an extension for our view controller. So this is a login view controller, and we're going to say UI text field delegate. And we want to implement should return true. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if the text field is the username fields, we want the, once the user hits return, we want the password field to get focus, aka the keyboard pops up. Else, if the text field is the password field and the user hits return, we want to call did tap login. And now that I think about it, on the password field, the return type, let's see, where is it? Return type, instead of being next, this should probably be something like continue. And let's also add a border to both fields. So we're going to say field layer border width is going to be 1.0. And we're going to say border color is going to be UI color secondary label dot CG color. Let's copy and paste that like so. And what else do we need to do? We also want to lay out that that button for terms and privacy. So let's see, did we actually configure those? Looks like, where are they? Looks like we did not. So let's actually do that really fast. So we're going to say let button. We're going to say button set title. This one's going to be terms of service for normal. We're going to return button. We're going to say button set title color, and this is going to be secondary label. And this is basically, again, a dark mode conformant color, which is a light colored label. And what else do we want here? We don't want to change the background or anything. So let me just copy and paste this, and we will simply change the text here to be privacy policy. Now we also want to connect these buttons to the functions that we added down here. So let's do that in view to load. So here we got the delegates, we're adding the subviews. So let's add those targets. So we're going to say login button, add target, self, selector, did tab login, for touch up inside, which is a basic tap. And let's be lazy and copy and paste this. Control I to fix that indentation. We want it for create account, terms, and privacy. Did tap terms, did tap privacy, did tap create an account. So those are good to go now. And let's give the privacy and terms a frame. So they're going to be all the way at the bottom of our screen here. So what we're going to say is it's going to be terms first and then privacy. So we're going to say terms label or terms button. And this is going to be CG rect. And we'll say X is 10. Y is going to be view.height minus view.safe area.bottom. And let's see, subtracting 100. And we're getting 100 because each of these buttons will be 50 points tall. This is going to be the width, subtracting 20 because this is 10. So that way it's going to be centered. Whoops. Let's do that. And let's copy and paste this for the privacy button. X can stay, width and height are good. The only difference is now this is going to be subtracting 50. Go ahead and hit Command R. And let's see what we look like. All right, so we've got our terms of service down here, our privacy policy, our login form here, and it's looking pretty good. The one thing that I will adjust is I'm going to add some more buffer between the header view and the field because it's a little close. So we're going to say header view plus, let's say something like 40. That's probably a little more room. And everything below it should move as well since everything is relatively positioned. Also, this border looks pretty nice. Let's see what it looks like in dark mode. Yep, looks much nicer. I'm liking it. If we tilt this, we can see the header view does not comply appropriately, but good thing we're only building this app in portrait. To tilt your simulator, you can hold command and hit the left or right arrow. But since we're only doing portrait, let's go to our project. And we are going to uncheck these other orientations. And now that we're in here, let's change the deployment target to iOS 13. So not the latest, but we're going to support everyone that's 13 and up. And it looks like the UI took a little bit of time, but let's do a little bit more before wrapping up. Let's make sure that still looks good now that we changed deployment. Looks like we can't rotate. Looking good, looking good. Let's do a bit of these functions that we stubbed out. So when the login button gets tapped, we're going to first dismiss the keyboard. So we're going to say password field resign first responder, which basically dismisses the keyboard. Then we're going to double check that we have text. So we're going to say username email is going to be the username field dot text. And this is going to return an optional. So we're going to guard let it. And we're going to also validate that it's not empty. And basically, we'll do the same thing for the password field. Else, we're going to return. So this is going to be password. And this is going to be password field. And this is going to be password as well. And we're going to require that the password is at least 8 characters long. So we're going to say password dot count is greater than or equal to 8. And if it's not, then we're not going to continue at all to log in because we know it can't be correct. And here we're going to implement login functionality. And if the user taps on the terms button, we're going to open up Instagram terms. And basically, we're going to open that up in a web view. So we're going to import Safari services. And if we go back to did tap terms, here we can simply say let VC equals SF Safari view controller with a URL. And this URL will be basically the Instagram terms URL. And we have to say guardlet because a URL constructor here might be optional because, of course, this is not a valid URL and it'll return nil. But we're going to grab this in a second. But after the VC is created, we can simply say present VC animated true. Let's also paste this into did tap privacy. And let's quickly find those Instagram terms of service. I'm just going to grab their actual URL. So let's grab this guy and paste it on in for the terms button. And let's come back here and search for privacy policy and privacy settings. I guess data policy is what they call it. So let's grab this. And we're going to paste this in here. And did tap create. So this one is fairly easy. So what we're going to do here is what we're going to say is let VC equals, what did I call it? Registration view controller. We can simply do present VC animated true. So looking good. If we hit Command R, those functions should be good to go now for the extent that we've implemented them. So if we hit create account, we see something got presented. It doesn't have a background color, so we can't see it. So let's quickly add that. We're going to say background color is system background. And I'm totally going over my 20-minute limit, but we're almost done. So here is that registration controller that gets popped up. If we hit terms of service, it opens up a web view in our app to the Instagram terms. You can go back. And if we hit privacy policy, we go to their data policy. So login's looking pretty good. We need to obviously hook up the fields to our Firebase stuff over here. But these buttons, for the most part, are good to go. And if we're on the password field and type in a password, and let's say we type in a username, here, if we hit return, you see it goes to the next field per the delegate. And here, if we hit return, it dismisses the keyboard. So that said, I'll wrap up the part here. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't destroyed the like button already, make sure to do so. Leave a comment for any feedback, errors, questions. If you just want to say hi, I love hearing from you guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next part.